I was at a dinner party recently, and I saw this debate unfold. It was. It was a perfect picture of a trap that I think we all fall into sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So on one side of the table, there's this guy, and he is just radiating absolute, unshakable confidence. I mean, a rapid-fire answer for everything, citing numbers. He spoke with this, this real finality.
Expert in the room.
Totally.
Yeah.
To anyone just watching, he looked like the smartest person there. He was winning. He was certain.
Ah, there's the word.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But then the woman across from him, she asked this really quiet, simple question. She just says, what specific evidence would it take for you to change your mind?
Oof, the killer question.
The entire energy in the room just shifted instantly. This confident guy, he just froze. And the silence stretched out for a few seconds. It felt like an hour. You could almost see the gears grinding.
He didn't have an answer.
Not a thing. Because he'd never even considered he could be wrong. And in that split second, his certainty stopped looking like strength, and it started looking like a blindfold. He got defensive, attacked her tone, the usual stuff. The illusion just shattered.
That silence says it all. We are so seduced by the comfort of being right, of having that answer locked in. But it's dangerous.
It's so dangerous. It makes you fragile. And it got me thinking, what if we stopped trying to be the person with all the answers and started valuing the ability to just see the map clearly, even if that map is incomplete?
Well, that's it, right. That question, what evidence would change your mind? It's the ultimate test for intellectual honesty. It shows that certainty, it feels great. It's like emotional armor.
Yeah, a comfort blanket.
Exactly. But operationally, it's often useless. Or worse, it's actually damaging. And that's really what we're doing a deep dive into today. We're exploring that shift, that really necessary shift, from chasing the comfort of certainty to valuing the power of clarity.
Okay, I get the danger, but let me push back a little on that. If we're always in a state of doubt or, incompleteness, don't we risk analysis paralysis? You need some certainty to launch something big, right? Oh. You can't lead a team by saying, well, I guess we'll go this way.
That's a fantastic point, and it really gets to the heart of the tension here. We're not arguing for paralysis, not at all. It's about distinguishing between, say, confidence in your execution versus certainty in the outcome.
Okay.
A certainty culture is destructive because it just locks down thinking. It feels good, sure, but it leads straight to overconfidence, inflexibility, and massive groupthink.
Where nobody wants to rock the boat.
Nobody. When you're certain, you stop listening. You debate to win, not to understand what's actually happening.
This is where it gets really interesting, because there's a classic case of this destroying a huge amount of business value. I remember the story of that once dominant mobile company. Well, let's call them the keyboard loyalists, back in the mid-2010s.
A perfect, almost textbook example of the certainty trap. Their past success basically cemented this belief that their winning formula was, well, timeless. Senior leadership was paralyzed by their own conviction.
And it wasn't a lack of information.
No, it was a conviction that their core values, the physical keyboards, the long battery life, were the only things that mattered to their customers.
And you could see this certainty in their actual behavior. They were just, actively disregarding huge market signals. Product managers were bringing in data on the app ecosystems blowing up on other devices.
Touch screens.
Yeah, showing how user behavior was fundamentally changing. The market was screaming at them, but leadership just... they had their fingers in their ears.
Because they weren't looking for clarity on what was really happening. They were looking for confirmation of what they already believed.
Yes.
So any data that suggested a huge pivot was needed was just brushed off. It was an anomaly, a fad. Their loyal customers would never go for it. So their R&D budgets stayed locked on making a better keyboard.
They spent millions confirming their past instead of investing in their future. And questioning that was seen as being disloyal. It was an echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And the result was, a catastrophic failure. Billions in value, just gone. The certainty didn't protect them from risk. It was the cause of their failure.
And it's a cognitive mechanism. Certainty stops progress everywhere. Think about science. The greatest discoveries almost always start with doubt. With someone saying, this model doesn't feel complete.
Right. Why would you test something you already know?
You wouldn't. And when you stop testing, you stop learning, which is a death sentence for innovation. It reminds me of that Bertrand Russell quote, something like, "The trouble with the world is that the stupid are cocksure and the intelligent are full of doubt."
That is a fantastic way to put it.
Yep.
So if certainty is the trap, let's really define the alternative. What exactly is clarity?
Clarity is the sustainable superpower. That's how I think of it. It's not about having all the answers. It's about seeing the landscape clearly enough to know which questions you need to ask.
Okay, so it's about seeing the problem, not knowing the solution.
Precisely. It's about being able to say, here are the knowns, here are the unknowns, and here are the assumptions we're making to connect them. That position lets you move forward, even when things are super ambiguous.
So what are the, operational advantages? When you're under pressure, why is clarity better than certainty?
Okay, so a few specific things. First, clarity forces you to separate facts from assumptions. That is critical when you have limited data. Second, it lets you see complexity without that emotional need to, oversimplify it into a neat little story.
Which is so tempting.
So tempting. And maybe most important, it lets you adapt your thinking the second new information comes in. You're not emotionally invested in being right from the start. Certainty hides your blind spots. Clarity makes you look for them.
Which requires a pretty deep sense of intellectual humility.
Exactly. Valuing clarity means you have to have intellectual humility. You stop being the authority figure, which is the certainty posture, and you become a learner. You actively look for information that contradicts what you think.
It's the opposite of that Dunning-Kruger effect,
Yeah.
where people don't know what they don't know.
The complete opposite. The humble person knows their current model is just that, a model, not the ultimate truth.
And the powerful side effect of that is psychological safety.
Absolutely. When a leader is clear about the limits of their own knowledge, when they say, I don't know for sure, it gives everyone else permission to speak up.
Right.
You suddenly feel safe enough to ask a critical question or express your own doubts. It changes the whole environment from hiding mistakes to finding risks together.
Okay, so if that's what it does for a product team, it must be exponentially more important in, high-stakes life and death situations. That's where the pressure for certainty must be just agonizing.
It's a critical point because in a crisis, the public's desire for certainty goes through the roof. People want a timeline, 100% guarantee, and the pressure on leaders to provide that, whether it's true or not, is immense.
The public health crisis example we looked at with a senior epidemiologist really brought this home for me. She was facing this incredible pressure from politicians, the media, everyone.
They all wanted a date.
A date, a guarantee. And the impulse to just give them a soothing, certain story must have been overwhelming.
But she chose clarity. It was a strategic choice. She knew that a little bit of comfort now would lead to huge distrust later when reality didn't match the promise.
So what did she do?
She stood up there and she was really clear about the boundaries. She'd say, this is what we know today based on these limited data sets. This is what we're testing, and these are the big things we still don't know.
She was basically inviting the public into the complexity of the problem. But she must have gotten hammered for it at first.
Well, she did. She was criticized for appearing weak or unprepared because, like we said, people confuse an honest admission of limits with a lack of control. They wanted the hero who says, I've got this solved.
But her strategy paid off.
Massively. Months later, when the data inevitably shifted, because data always does in a crisis, she didn't have to backtrack on a broken promise. Because she was transparent from the start, the public actually trusted her updates more, even the bad news. Her clarity built her credibility.
So clarity isn't passive. It's an active, robust way to deal with ambiguity. It heads off that anger that comes when a promise of certainty fails. It lets you be adaptive instead of rigid.
So how do organizations actually do this? How do you operationalize that shift? We're seeing it in the agile mindset. That's what it's all about.
Right. They ditch those old, rigid waterfall plans that assume you know everything on day one.
Exactly. That's the certainty trap in project management. They recognize that making huge bets on a 5-year plan is it's insane. So instead, they test assumptions constantly. They have retrospectives. They build in feedback loops.
So they move faster by getting clear feedback, not by just rushing.
Precisely. It makes their decisions robust because they're built to adapt, not built on a single perfect path that's doomed to fail.
I heard this great little story about that on a team level. It was a consultant working with a company after a big software crash. The old culture would make the meeting a blame game, right? Who messed this up?
Of course. That certainty culture at its worst. Find the one person to blame. Restore the illusion that the system is perfect.
But this team lead, she completely reframed it. She changed the question from the accusatory, who messed up, to the process-focused, what did we assume was true that turned out to be false?
Oh, that's brilliant. That one question just breaks the whole blame cycle. It shifts the focus from people to process. It assumes the failure was systemic, not a person being stupid or malicious.
And that reframing, it created that psychological safety we were talking about. A junior developer who would have been terrified to speak up suddenly felt safe enough to admit his assumption.
What was it?
He said, I assumed the server load wouldn't spike past 10% because the documentation said the launch was phased.
Ah, and there it is, the unlock.
The whole thing. The senior architect didn't blame him. She asked another clarifying question. What information were you missing? And boom, they found a huge blind spot in their documentation. The entire energy in the room shifted from defense to collaboration.
Which is why having practical tools for this is so important. We saw one that was called the clarity calibration string. It's like a ladder of insight for when you're swimming in assumptions.
Okay, so what are the steps?
The order is critical. First you ask, what do we actually know? Just the hard facts. Strip away the story.
Step 1, facts only.
Step 2, and only after you have the facts, is, are we assuming anything? This is the intellectual humility part. You have to actively hunt for your hidden beliefs.
And the third question is the one that turns this insight into action.
Precisely. The third question is, what needs to be true for this to work? This pivots the team towards something they can actually test. It doesn't ask for certainty. It asks for a clear framework of conditions.
So if one of those conditions fails, you know exactly where the plan broke. You can adapt.
You can adapt. You move forward with confidence in your adaptability, not confidence in being right all the time.
You know, when you look at all this, from the CEO clinging to his keyboard to the epidemiologist managing a crisis, the pattern is so clear. Certainty feels like you know the destination, but clarity is what gives you the compass for the journey itself.
And when you build that into a team or a whole system, the impact is just profound. Disagreements become productive because you're trying to build a better map together, not win an argument. Learning speeds up because people stop pretending to know things they don't.
And trust deepens.
Trust deepens. You end up replacing these rigid convictions with agile frameworks. You're choosing light over being locked in. The most powerful knowledge isn't having the final answer. It's having a really clear understanding of the limits of what you know right now.